Hey everyone, and welcome back to Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite. I am your host, Jim Chapman, and we are back with this 19th episode in the Murdaugh series. And we're going to jump right into it. The last time that I left you, the crime scene was reconstructed by crime scene reconstruction expert Dr. Kenneth Kinsey. And as I said then, I think his testimony was a big key in this case. I think he resonated heavy with the jury in a positive way. And we move on from that to what I'm bringing you today. So let's talk about Buster Murdaugh, the only surviving family member outside of Alex, his brother and mother murdered on that property in Moselle, and his father on trial for his life and accused of that murder. I just could not imagine how Buster must have felt. A few facts on Buster. Of course, you know, he was to be the next generation of the Murdaugh monarchy, if you will. He was 26 years old at the time of his testimony, 24 at the time of the murders. His legal name, Richard Alex Murdaugh. He was attending law school at the University of South Carolina, something of a family tradition. That's where they all went to school. And all this was taking place just before the murder of his mother and brother. Now, at this point in the trial, the prosecution had rested, and it was the defense's turn to call witnesses. And he was a witness for the defense, and he was witnessing in the defense of his father. And Buster was in a tight spot, right? So the defense, they go first. And everyone's least favorite lawyer, and I hate to throw shade on this guy, Jim Griffin. I'm sure he's a fantastic attorney, but he is just not my cup of tea. I just don't gel with this guy, I guess. He just seems totally boring to me. He gets up and he is going to lead the questioning for the defense. I'm only playing a few clips because Jim Griffin aggravates me, quite frankly, but there were some poignant moments between the questioning between he and Buster. And in this first clip, Griffin wants to establish the type of father that Alex was. And he wants the jury to get a sense of that from his surviving son, right? And he frames his questions to Buster so as to reflect that. Who was Alex, the father? Well, Buster answers that question in this first clip.
Adjust your chair and your microphone. And if you'll state your full name and spell your last name.
Richard Alexander Murdaugh, Jr., M-U-R-D-A-U-G-H. I go by Buster.
Mr. Murdaugh, is your father sitting over here at defense table?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury a little bit about yourself. Where you born? Where you raised? Where'd you go to school?
Right. So my name is Buster, 26 years old. I live in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. I was born in Savannah and lived in Beaufort for about 2 years when I was a little child. We moved to Hampton in about 2000, and I grew up in Hampton, went to Wade Hampton High School, and after high school I went to a small college in Spartanburg called Wofford.
Is your mother Maggie?
Yes, sir.
And your brother Paul?
Yes, sir.
When you moved to Hampton, do you remember how old you were when you first moved to Hampton?
Three or four.
Okay. And did you live in Hampton in a house in the city limits?
Yes, sir.
The town limits?
Yes, sir.
And you did that with your mom and dad and brother for how long?
Around 20 years.
Right. What schools did you go to coming up through in Hampton County? What did you go to grade school?
Went to Ben Hazel Primary School, Hampton Elementary School, North District Middle School, Wade Hampton High School.
Okay. And as you were growing up, what were your interests, Buster?
Sports, playing sports, doing things outdoors, hunting, fishing.
And was your father involved in those interests with you?
Yes, sir.
And was your mother also?
Yes, sir.
And in what way?
Well, my father coached every Little League team I played on up until I started playing for the schools in which had a coach.
And what about Paul? What were his interests growing up?
Paul's interests were outdoors, mostly. Hunting, fishing, playing around in the woods.
Right. Did he also play sports at times?
He did. Yeah, he played basketball and baseball.
Did your dad coach him as well?
He did.
And would your parents attend all of your and Paul's sporting events as you're growing up?
Every game. And it was a rarity for them to miss one, and then if they had to, they would call and explain. And
right. And at some point in time, did your parents buy this property off Moselle Road?
yes, sir.
Do you remember roughly when that was?
Right around 2012, I think. I would have been a sophomore in high school.
And when that property was first purchased, did you move out to Moselle, or are you still living in Hampton?
So we had a house in Hampton and also purchased the property at Moselle, which had a house. And for the beginning stages of owning Moselle, Hampton was still working as our primary residence. But I believe it was Hurricane Matthew, or one of the hurricanes came through and blew a bunch of pine trees over on the house. So it had to get work done to it. And from that point, we moved out from Hampton to Moselle while the house was getting fixed. And more or less, it just it never transitioned back to Hampton. It just almost like Moselle became the primary residence.
And during this time, did your family also have a house at Edisto?
Yes, sir.
How frequently would you stay at the house at Edisto?
Very frequently during the summertime.
Okay.
Almost every weekend.
And when your family essentially relocated to the Moselle property and making it primary residence, were you still living at home in high school, or remember how old you were at that point in time?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jim. Will you say that again?
Were you living at home at that point in time? Was that while you were still in high school or
Yes.
school? You remember when you transitioned to Moselle and started staying there basically full time during the school year?
So when I was still in high school, we were living in the Hampton house, and then I'd gone off to college.
Okay.
Which is when the stuff happened, and they moved out to Moselle. So yeah, I was living at college.
And when did you go off to college?
2014.
Okay, so sometime after around 2014, family relocated to Moselle for the most part
That's right.
because of the hurricane damage.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell the jury a little bit about the Moselle property. I know they've heard a fair amount, but I think you probably know it better than anybody.
Yeah, so the Moselle property it's roughly 1,700 acres, and a lot of that is really not even accessible. It's a lot of swamplands, a lot of stuff that you just, no road systems or anything like that. But a big portion of it is has road systems and everything, and it's a big property. It's broken up into several different parcels that border each other, and we have 20 some odd deer stands, dove fields, duck ponds, just all over the property. So,
what type of hunting did you and your brother and your father do at Moselle?
everything: deer, duck, quail, dove, hogs.
You have a duck pond?
We have a duck pond.
Okay. And the hunting was, did you have a lot of friends come out and hunt as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the jury has seen a aerial view of the property, and there's a main house, there's shed, kennels, and then there's a house sort of right on Moselle Road. What do you call that house?
That's the cabin.
The cabin. And did you live in the cabin with friends over summers at some point in time?
I did. The summer of my sophomore year, after my sophomore year, me and two of my buddies lived in the cabin.
Okay. And who are those buddies?
Nolan Tootin and Rogan Gibson.
Okay. And the so we can get more to this. We've heard about hogs and pigs on the property. Can you tell the jury a little bit about that?
About the hogs?
Yes, sir.
We had a lot of hogs, and if you don't know, hogs are very destructive to a piece of property. You know, we plant food plots for the deer, plant the fields for the doves and the ducks, and they basically go through and ruin it all. So given the high population of hogs, we, would frequently go out and hunt them, try to cut the numbers down a little bit.
So another thing that Jim Griffin wants to establish is the lack of responsibility that Paul had with guns. Why? Well, he wants to justify that missing .300 blackout that Maggie was shot with. And in this next clip, you're going to hear Buster's thoughts on that, as well as the strange multiple shotgun loads in that shotgun. Remember, I had told you there were birdshot and there were buckshot shotgun shells in the shotgun that night. Here's Buster's thoughts on that.
What kind of guns did you have there at Moselle?
We had a lot of guns.
Do you have shotguns?
We did. Shotguns.
You have 12-gauge shotguns?
12-gauge shotguns, 20-gauge shotguns, 16-gauge shotguns, 28-gauge shotguns.
Right. And how many type rifles did you have on the property?
A lot.
Can you just name some of them?
Yeah, 270 short mag, 7mm 08, 308, 243, 223, 300 blackout.
And what type of ammo did you keep on the property?
Well, I mean, all ammos for those calibers.
Sure. And where were the guns kept primarily?
In the gun room at the main house at Moselle.
And was there a pool table in the gun room?
There was.
Okay. Were there times when guns were left elsewhere on the property?
Yes.
Where else on the property would guns be left?
Well, just myself. I mean, I've left them up at the shed before. I've left them on golf cart used that day. Left them in a truck. I mean, guns would just not always find their way back to the gun room.
How about Paul? How was he with securing guns?
Not good.
What do you mean by that?
Paul left guns probably more on the property than anybody else, and sometimes sometimes he would use my gun and then he would leave it, and then I'd have to track it down.
Right. Did Paul carry guns in his truck?
He did.
Would he keep his truck locked up?
No, not all the time.
Okay. Did at some point in time you and Paul receive 300 blackouts for Christmas?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember roughly, was that 2016 or 2017?
Sounds right.
Okay. And what color was your 300 blackout?
It was black.
And have you been sitting in this courtroom during the entire trial?
Yes, sir.
And the jury's seen a black 300 blackout. Is that yours?
It is. That is my 300 blackout.
Was that the one you got for Christmas?
Yes, sir.
And what color was Paul's?
Paul's was black and tan.
And when you say black and tan, what part was tan and what part was black?
So the receiver would have been tan, and and barrel would have been tan.
What part would have been black?
Stock, maybe.
Okay. And so yours was all black, his was black and tan.
That's right.
What happened to his that he got for Christmas in 2016?
His gun was apparently stolen, lost, taken. Yeah.
How do you know that?
That's just what Paul told me.
What happened to your gun after Paul's was stolen?
My gun became, what we would both use.
And what did that create some confrontation between you two at times?
Yes, sir.
And what? Why?
Well, kind of like I just touched on. So he would use it. He's not very good about putting it back where he found it. I leave it somewhere. I go back and, want to get it, and it's not there.
Did you notice, were you aware that Paul got a replacement at some point in time?
No, sir.
Well, you heard about that in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Trial? Okay. But up to that point, did you ever see Paul use the replacement?
No, sir. I've never seen a replacement.
And so every time in your presence, Paul was using a 300 blackout, which one would it be?
Mine.
There's, I'm not going to pull these guns out, Buster, but there's been discussion, and the jury has seen a 12-gauge Benelli with a Mojo sticker on it. Whose gun is that?
That's mine.
And what's Mojo?
Mojo is a brand of decoy. It's basically what it is it's, say you buy a wood duck Mojo and it sits on a pole, but the wings are motorized, so it's to replicate, a more alive duck.
And did you, why's your Benelli have a Mojo sticker on it?
Because I bought a Mojo decoy, and in the box it came with a sticker, and I put the sticker on the gun barrel.
And so that way that's your gun.
That's right.
Okay. I believe the evidence in the case is that Mojo Benelli, when it was seized, was loaded. Did you frequently put the gun away loaded?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Knowing that I might need it again at any point.
Okay.
Just, put it back on the shelf. I kept the safety on.
Okay. And I think it was loaded with a 3-inch and a 3.5-inch turkey load. Do you remember that you would load that gun with a 3-inch and a 3.5-inch?
Yes, sir.
And why would you do that?
I do that because when I go turkey hunting, the goal is to, get the turkey close to you and shoot it the first try. But if I were to miss and the turkey goes running away and I try to shoot it again, I put a bigger shell, larger shell behind the smaller one for that purpose.
Okay. And that's something you commonly did?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever load in a 12 gauge, 20 gauge, 28 gauge, a buckshot followed by a bird shot?
No, sir. I've never done that.
Have you ever known anybody to do that?
No, sir.
You know of any reason to do that?
No, I can't think of any reason to do that.
And specifically, have you ever loaded in any gun a buckshot followed by dry lock, steel, waterfowl pellet?
I have not.
You know anybody to do that?
No, sir.
You know any reason to do that?
No, sir.
So, what about the opiate addiction that Alex told his lawyer's friends he had and used as his primary excuse for stealing millions of dollars from his clients? What did the family think? When did they know? And what was his mother's reaction, Miss Maggie Murdaugh, to that boat wreck case where Paul's wreck led to the tragic death of Mallory Beach? Well, Buster answered all of those questions in this clip.
Buster, were you aware that your dad had a opioid addiction?
A little bit. I knew a little bit about the usage of pills.
What did you know about it?
I knew that either my brother and mom had found them at some point, and then told them like, "Hey, we found these." And I want to say the 2018 around Christmas, he went to a detox facility after Christmas, and that was my knowledge of it. Thought that handled it, and then there were a couple more times after the fact where they would kind of go into this finding pills, all that stuff, and then he did a few kind of like at home, just self-detoxed a couple times and, thought, once he did that, get off of them. But that was kind of my general knowledge about it all.
You thought he had beat it.
That's right. Yes, sir.
And when he was confronted about his pills, what was his attitude?
I don't know for sure because I wasn't there when a lot of the confrontations happened with them finding the pills. But, I've never heard anything, just, apologetic and,
right.
Sorry, and would usually be his kind of regular, kind of response.
How did your family handle disputes, or disagreements?
Pretty, like adults, pretty civilly, talked about it and stuff like that. And it just depends on the dispute too. Like,
right.
Like I was a kid, I get spanked, stuff like that. That's not really a disagreement. That's just
once you're a teenager and college age,
right?
Any reprimand or disputes you've gotten into with your father, was it all civil?
Yeah, definitely civil.
Did your father show patience with you and your brother?
Yes, sir. He would.
Was there ever any violence in the family?
No, sir.
In February of 2019, your brother was in a boating accident. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I believe, where were you living at the time?
Columbia.
Okay. And was he criminally charged eventually?
Yes, sir.
And what type of reaction was there to his involvement in the boating accident and his criminal charges sort of in the community in Hampton?
I would say a negative reaction in the community. The media spike kind of got going after it. There was a lot of articles in the media about our family and stuff like that. And
to your knowledge, was Paul being threatened or bullied on social media or anything like that?
Yeah, he was definitely being bullied on social media. Just people sending random messages, and I would talk to him. I know a lot of times he'd be walking down the sidewalk and, a car comes by and they would yell some stuff at him. I knew he would go out, in a bar and, there's somebody that wants to talk about it and, make a scuff about it.
What was your mother's reaction to all the negativity surrounding the boating accident?
It, it kind of consumed her. She's big on reading all of it, and when she read the negative stuff, it, made her feel upset and whatnot, and it ultimately kind of caused her to distance herself from Hampton. At this time, primarily living at Moselle, she quit going to the grocery stores in Hampton, quit going to the pharmacy, quit going to get food in Hampton. Just thought that there was a real, kind of a bad vibe in Hampton. Like you go, she
Right.
felt like people were staring at her and talking about her and stuff.
Where would she do her shopping?
She moved over to Walterboro and started going over that way.
Right. Were you sued in the boating accident?
Yes, sir.
Was your dad sued?
He was.
Was your mother sued?
Her estate became sued.
But before she was murdered, had she been sued?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay.
Maybe.
And do you know if Paul had been sued?
No, I don't know that he had been sued.
Okay. What was your mother anxious about the civil lawsuit?
Yes, sir.
What was her biggest concern?
I would say her biggest concern was reading articles after, Mark Tinsley had made a statement about how much money he was wanting to collect in the civil lawsuits, and I think it was to the tune of like $40 million or something like that. He was trying to get, and that made her anxious.
And what was your reaction to statements like that?
Well, I knew what he was saying, but it's not, to me, it just didn't seem, I didn't think Well, I don't have $40 million, so.
Right. And was your dad anxious about the lawsuit, to your knowledge?
He didn't appear to be overly anxious about it.
What took priority, the criminal case against Paul or the civil case?
The criminal case.
Right.
So at some point, Paul finds out that his brother Paul and his mother Maggie were killed. Who told him? What was his reaction? And as importantly, what did he observe as his father's reaction? What about those subsequent days after this? Buster talks about it in this clip.
Buster, I want to now talk about the weekends leading up to June the 7th.
Yes, sir.
And we showed the picture of the lake weekend where you were went up to Kiwi with the Proctors and the Brandstetters.
Yes, sir.
And then the following weekend, I believe, was Memorial Day. Were you with your family on Memorial Day weekend?
Yes, sir.
And who was present?
A lot of people were present. I was there. My brother was there. My mom, my dad. My brother had some friends staying with us, and those were the people sleeping there. And then people are, in and out throughout the day, throughout the weekend.
I mean, was it a fun family weekend?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was it a normal Memorial Day weekend at Edisto with your family and friends?
That's right.
Okay, I'm going to show you. No, this is not it. I'm going to show you Defendant's Exhibit 123. And I want to get you to identify it, Buster. Don't just say what it is, please.
It's a picture of my mom and my dad and I on a boat.
Is that Memorial Day weekend?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we move Defendant's Exhibit 123 into evidence.
No objection. It's admitted.
Is this the photo, Buster?
Yes, sir.
And then I believe this same weekend there was a birthday party or cookout. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Doug, if you could play Defense Exhibit 61, please. It's in evidence. And I'll just take a look at that.
Thank y'all so much. Hey, thank you, baby.
And was that did your mom make a cake for your dad?
Yes, sir.
And that was a group of friends. When's your dad's birthday? Do you know the exact date? It's not a test. Just say you don't know if you don't.
No, I don't know the exact date.
It's around Memorial Day?
That's right.
Okay.
27th, maybe.
Then the following weekend, there was a baseball tournament in Columbia, correct?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Tell the jury about that weekend. What happened there?
That was the weekend. South Carolina was hosting a regional baseball tournament, and me, my mom, my dad, and my girlfriend went to the baseball games.
And where was the game?
Columbia.
And it was a super regional or
Regional.
a regional?
Yes, sir.
And what days of that weekend did you go to the game?
Saturday and Sunday.
Did your mom and dad stay in Columbia that weekend?
They did.
Or they stayed on Saturday night?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did y'all tailgate with them on Saturday or Sunday?
Yes, sir. We did.
Okay. And was it a normal weekend?
It was.
Fun weekend?
Yes, sir.
And that Sunday would have been June the 6th, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then on June the 7th, we went through a host of number of telephone calls with you and your dad and mom leading up to 9:08, 9:10 on June 7th. So Buster, when did you first find out that your mom and brother were murdered?
My dad called me. I can't remember the exact time, but it was later. And he called me on the phone. He asked me if I was sitting down, and I was like, yeah. And then he, sounded odd, and then he told me that my mom and brother had been shot.
And what'd you do?
Well, Brooklyn, my girlfriend, was with me, and I think she heard she could hear my conversation kind of over the phone, and so she just started packing stuff, and I kind of just sat there for a minute. I was in shock, but eventually we got our stuff together and drove down to Moselle.
Do you remember what time you got to Moselle?
It was early in the morning, late in the morning. If we left around 10:30, 11, got there sometime probably around 2 o'clock in the morning.
And when you got there, did you see your dad?
Yes, sir.
What kind of condition was he in? What was his demeanor?
Yeah, his demeanor was, he was destroyed. He was heartbroken. I walked in the door and saw him and gave him a hug and just broken down.
Could he speak?
Not really.
Was he crying?
Yes, sir.
Who else was in the house? Do you remember?
Yeah. My girlfriend Brooklyn and I got there. Out in the driveway, my Uncle Randy and Uncle John were out there. Chris Wilson and Corey Fleming had just gotten there. They had pulled in behind us, and when I walked in, several of the partners were there. Ronnie Crosby was there. Lee Cope was there. Mark Ball was there. Austin Crosby was there. William Barnes. My buddy Nolan was there. And I'm sure I'm leaving some out, but that's
Sure.
what I remember.
And do you remember how long you stayed there?
Stayed there several hours, probably 3 or 4 hours, till about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
And where did you go?
And then we left Moselle and we went to Alameda.
And when you say we, who are you talking about?
My girlfriend, my dad, and my Uncle John.
I know this seems kind of trivial, but what was your dad wearing when you first saw him?
Shorts, T-shirt.
Okay. And did you help him pack?
I did, yes, sir.
What did you do to help him pack?
Got his bag and went into the closet, grabbed some T-shirts, grabbed some shorts, grabbed toilet kit, put in the bag, and left.
Why were you doing the packing?
Just trying to help him. He was so upset. We were all upset, but just trying to expedite the process of getting to Alameda.
When you went in to pack your dad, was there a T-shirt laying on the floor?
I couldn't remember.
Did you get shirts from above the? I don't know.
Objection to form of question.
Where did you get the T-shirts from?
Got them from the closet, and there's like wooden shelves up on the wall, and I was getting the T-shirts from there.
Were there a lot of T-shirts on the shelf?
Yes, sir.
Do you know whether or not one of the T-shirts fell on the floor when you were packing?
I don't know whether one of them fell on the floor or not, but certainly could have happened.
When you got to Moselle, were you able to get some sleep?
No, sir.
Did you go back to Moselle the next morning?
Yes, sir.
And who went with you?
Me, my girlfriend Brooklyn, and my dad, and maybe John Marvin. I don't know if he was riding with us or already out there separately, but he was somewhere in the mix.
Do you remember roughly what time you got to Moselle?
I think we got there rather early. Nobody really slept, and about early in the morning, sun comes up. Just
Did
go back.
Did you take a shower and Brooklyn take a shower at Alameda, or did you do it over at Moselle?
No, sir. We slept tried to sleep at Alameda, and then we took everything back with us to Moselle, and we showered there.
You know where your dad took a shower that morning?
Yeah, Moselle.
And when you went back over in the morning, do you know what your dad was wearing? When you were traveling from Alameda back?
No, not specifically, but I know that, I know what I packed, so it could have been any of that. It's just athletic shorts and T-shirts and stuff.
And after you got to Moselle, and I guess just carrying the days forward, were you with your dad? Well, how often were you with your dad once you got back to Moselle on the 8th?
No, every day.
For how many days?
For a good while.
Okay, so let's talk about where you stayed on the night of the 8th. Do you remember?
Night of the 8th would have either stayed back in Alameda, or that's potentially when we made the transition over to John Marvin's hunting lodge.
Okay. Well, were you, when you say we, are you including your father?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you drive together?
Yes, sir.
Was he pretty much in your eyesight for the first few days?
Yes, sir.
And so after the 8th, and then you come up on the 9th, a Wednesday, do you know whether you were at Alameda or spending the night at your Uncle John Marvin's place?
Yeah, I think at that point we had switched over to his place over at Greenfield.
Now, and you call it Greenfield, that's the name of his hunting
Yes, sir. Just the name of the property overall.
property. Now, how far is it from Alameda?
To Greenfield,
Yeah.
a couple minutes. I mean, not
Close
very.
by. Close
Yeah, right down the road.
by. And then, and do you remember how long you stayed at Greenfield with your dad?
Yeah, I mean, several days. And, I think anywhere from the 9th to the, probably that rest of that week through that weekend.
Yeah, on Thursday, June 10th, what happened?
Grandfather died.
So the family was together and stayed together?
Yes, sir.
Do you ever remember your dad disappearing for any periods of time?
No, sir.
Were you physically close to him most all the time?
Yes, sir.
Except when you were sleeping?
That's right.
And I believe the funeral for your mom and brother memorial service was on that Saturday?
Yes, sir.
Right. And then that Sunday was a funeral for your father? Grandfather. I'm
Grandfather.
sorry.
Yes, sir.
And at some point in time you went to, did you go to Somerville at some point in time?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember when you went to Somerville?
Right, beginning of that next week.
Hey, I want to ask you, that Defendant's Exhibit 129, marked for identification purposes, refreshes your recollection as to when you left to go to Somerville.
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury, what is that? What's that document you have in your hand?
It's a text thread between my girlfriend and I.
And does it have, so based on that text communication between you and your girlfriend, it refreshes your recollection, when did you leave to go to Somerville?
June 14th.
And looking through there, refreshing your recollection, how long did you stay in Somerville?
Stayed in Somerville until the 17th.
And then what do you remember doing after you left Somerville?
On the 17th, we left Somerville to go to Lake Kiwi.
And so when you were in Somerville from the 14th to the 17th, who were you staying with?
Staying with my grandparents.
And then you went to Kiwi. Who did you go with?
Went with my dad and I, my grandparents, my aunt and uncle, and their children, their children's boyfriends, and that was it.
Okay. So you're with your dad from the night of June 7th and through the Kiwi trip, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you remember what you did after the Lake Kiwi trip?
No.
At some point in time, you decide, I've got to go back to Rock Hill?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Remember roughly when that was?
No, I mean, I think it was sometime following all this, but I can't tell you exactly when I went back to work.
When you decided to go back to Rock Hill, you had a job in Charlotte, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Did you have any discussions with your father about your personal safety?
Yes, sir.
Did he make any offers to you?
He did.
What offers did he make to you?
He offered me to...
Basis for the objection.
Hearsay. Self-serving hearsay.
Response.
Your Honor, offer is not hearsay. It's an offer.
The objection is sustained.
Did you take any security precautions?
No.
Did you want any security protection?
No, sir, I didn't.
Why not?
Well, I didn't want to carry a gun or anything like that, and I also didn't want like a private security detail following me around, just for lack of privacy. And at the time, the places that I was staying and the places that I were going, like I was staying at Rock Hill in my girlfriend's house, who has, alarm systems and security cameras and whatnot. And then other than that, I'm staying in hotels, which,
Right.
I just felt.
Did at some point in time you and your father announce a reward?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you what I marked as Defendant's Exhibit 126. I'm going to ask if you identify this. If you can identify this.
Yes, sir. This is the reward.
Yes, a news release up about the reward?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we've moved Defendant's Exhibit 126. Did you work on this language with your dad?
Yes, sir.
Can you read to the jury the first two paragraphs, please, beginning with Alex and Buster Murdaugh?
Yes, sir. Alex and Buster Murdaugh announced today a reward of $100,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons who brutally murdered Paul and Maggie on June 7th, 2021. I want to thank everyone for the incredible love and support that we have received over the last few weeks. Now is the time to bring justice for Maggie and Paul. Buster and I, along with Maggie's mother, father, and our entire family, ask that anyone with helpful information immediately call the SLED tip line or Crime Stoppers.
Thank you. Now there's in the body of this, there's a expiration date on this reward. What's your understanding of the purpose of having an expiration date?
I'm not real sure.
Okay. Well, you see it says, to be eligible, the person claiming the reward must submit the tip to SLED or Crime Stoppers by September 31, 2021?
Yes, sir.
What happened in September, early September 2021, Buster?
Talking about the...
Yeah, do you remember your dad going
Yes,
off
sir.
to detox, roadside shooting?
Yes, sir.
From that moment that your dad went to the hospital and went to detox, did he ever come back home to his property, his clothes, his belongings, to
No,
your
sir.
knowledge?
No, sir.
There's been questions about whereabouts on Alex's clothes. Can you tell the jury before he went off to detox where his clothes were? How many different locations he had clothes?
So, had clothes at Moselle, had clothes at Greenfield, had clothes at probably a few clothes at Alameda, had clothes at Randy and Christie's house, had clothes a lot of places.
Do you have clothes down at Chichesi or
Yep, Chichesi, Okatee.
you have clothes at Edisto?
Yes, sir.
Do you have clothes in his car?
Yes, sir.
Can't lead the witness.
How many nights after June 7th, to your knowledge, did your dad spend at Moselle?
9.
How many nights after June 7th did you spend at Moselle?
9.
I'm gonna Doug, you have the Snapchat video? Can you pull that up, please? Of the tree. Your Honor, this is the Snapchat video that's in evidence. I'll get the exhibit number for the record shortly. Buster, you recognize that shirt?
Yes, sir.
What kind of shirt is it?
It's like a, short sleeve button down shirt.
Is it a Columbia shirt?
No, it doesn't look like a Columbia shirt.
What color is it?
It's blue.
Okay. Did your dad have a foam green Columbia sports shirt?
Maybe.
Okay. Is this it?
No. This is blue.
Right. Did do you know if your dad ever ordered any Vinnie Vine or I don't know? Did he order clothes after your mother and brother's murders?
Maybe he ordered clothes, but he doesn't wear a lot of Vineyard Vines.
Okay. Have you ever seen him buy Vineyard Vine?
No, sir.
Sometime in August, did you go with your dad where you played in a golf tournament?
Yes, sir. I went and played in a golf tournament, and he came and wanted to watch us play in it.
And what kind of golf tournament?
It's a golf tournament that a buddy of mine puts on in Somerville every year. It's called the Jasso Invitational. It's just a bunch of guys that are friends come together and play in a golf tournament.
And did you look up the date of that tournament before testifying today?
I did.
And what weekend was that tournament in August of, in 2021?
Yeah, it's the last weekend in August of 2021.
Okay. Do you know if you were in the, was there a house that Johnny Parker had that your dad kept stuff in?
Yes, sir. There's a small house in between Johnny Parker's house and my Uncle Randy's house. I think Mr. Johnny built it for his mom or mother-in-law or something when she was sick. But yeah, there's a little 2-bedroom house right there.
And did your dad stay there?
He did. He did.
I don't know if we mentioned that as one of the places where there was clothing.
Yeah, that'd be one. That'd be another one.
All right. So there are a lot of places.
Yes, sir.
Were you there? Did you observe your dad talking to Blanca about anything where you're getting ready to go on the golf trip?
No, sir.
Okay. You were not present.
No, sir. I don't think I was present.
Did you go in any other golfing outings in August with your dad, to your knowledge?
Yes. Earlier August of that year, we played golf down in Hilton Head with the people from the Trial Lawyers Convention.
Okay. Now have you been sitting in this courtroom since day one?
Yes, sir.
Once the trial started?
Every day.
Just very briefly, Buster, you've heard testimony during this trial that your dad was stealing money from clients. Did
Yes,
you know
sir.
anything about that?
No, sir.
Okay. And just lastly, roughly how long would it take to clean a dog run down at the kennels? 2 dog runs, for example.
Roughly, I'd say 10 minutes or so.
Okay. And what do you have to do?
You got to get the hose, turn the hose on, spray out the dog kennels. You got to, put the bed on top of the wooden box so the bed's not wet.
Now, what are you spraying? Dog manure?
Yeah, spraying, dog poop.
And it spreads out, and you've got to...
That's right. Yeah, you got to spray it, make sure it's all out of there. Spray it to the back.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Now, the prosecution at this point, they're wanting to get up there and ask their own questions, but they have to be careful. The last person you want to look like you're attacking in this trial is Buster Murdaugh, who's lost every single person in his immediate family at this point. His brother and mother are dead, and his father's on trial for it. So they make what I consider a brilliant decision, and they allow my favorite lawyer in this case, the awesome John Metters, to lead the questioning. And incidentally, I did a little digging on John Metters, and absolute stud of a lawyer, a special prosecutor, in fact, for the state of South Carolina. They only call him for high-profile murder cases, and he is paid by the state on a per-case basis. This guy is the shit. Well, in this first clip, you're going to hear an amazing open. Remember, he has to be delicate. He doesn't want to offend this jury by looking like he's being anything but delicate to Buster Murdaugh. And he also asked Buster about Moselle's layout, which is very important to the movements of Alex, especially as it relates to a timeline. So here's what that sounded like.
Can I call you Buster?
Yes, sir.
I'm John. And I want to first off tell you I am sorry about your mother.
Sorry, I can't hear him.
I'm sorry about his mother.
Step back a little bit, I can hear him.
And I'm sorry about your brother.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry about your grandfather.
Thank you.
He was nice to me when I was a young assistant solicitor. I'm sorry for your loss.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I don't have any questions for you, Buster.
Okay.
When you are leaving the main house, you told Mr. Griffin that the main entrance was the brick entrance?
Yes, sir.
But there's also a side entrance, or by the kennels, or
Yeah.
entrance exit.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just a totally different entrance.
And the mailbox was at the side entrance.
Yes, sir.
The kennel entrance.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why was that? Do you know?
I don't know. I think it's just I really don't know.
Okay. I don't either. But the packages would come to, you said the kennel side?
They would come to the shed.
Okay. And a lot of times y'all would use that kennel entrance exit to go just like you'd use the main one, right?
Yeah, you would. I would say that I more so tended to use the main one, the one that I say is the brick pillars. But yeah, I mean, you could certainly leave either way.
If you were leaving the main entrance and you got down, you're leaving the house and you're going toward the brick, and then where it's kind of a Y where it kind of cuts off to the kennel too, right?
Sure.
So you go straight or left. If you were leaving at night going straight, and if you were looking out to the left and the lights were on, you'd be able to see the lights on at the kennel just from that little Y, wouldn't you?
Maybe, depending on what lights were on and whatnot. I mean, if it was fully lit up, maybe.
Okay. And just from that Y, instead of going straight, from that distance, you'd be able to, if the lights were on fully, you'd probably be able to see.
Maybe, yes, sir.
Alameda, where your grandma and granddaddy were, is that close to it's close to the law firm, isn't it?
Alameda?
Yes, sir.
Close to the law firm? I wouldn't say so. I mean, anywhere in Hampton is close to anywhere in Hampton because it's not very big.
Fair enough.
But, I mean, it's a 10-minute, 12-minute drive out to Alameda, I would think, from the law firm.
I think, Mr. Duck, could you bring up 131? Can I ask him to do that? I know Mr. Harkin exposed this. This is Griffin's witness. I said, sure. So you don't have to but you see, is this kind of where you said everybody would park?
It's right. So if you look.
You mind if I come up here?
No, sir, you can. So if you look right off this point.
You might want to come down here if you don't mind. Just for the jury.
So if you look right over here, this is kind of what I'm referred to as like the back corner of the house. And it would basically, you would come around, there's a big oak tree here, you come around it, and then you basically pull up, and you would probably stop the hood of your car right off the back corner of the house.
So a bit closer to here than to over here.
Be about right in here.
So right in here.
Yeah, I mean, because you don't want to pull up super close to it. Yeah, be right out.
Okay. But there was a driveway and paved driveway in here, right?
There is a paved driveway over towards the side of the house.
Okay, and really not many tire tracks. The grass looks good in here.
I don't know when these pictures were taken, but it's a little dead right there.
But there is a driveway, right?
There is a driveway.
Okay, you can have a seat, man. Thank you, please. When did you first mention that to anybody about parking in the yard there?
What do you mean?
I mean, like, when did you first discuss that with anybody as far as where cars parked at your grandma and granddad's house? When was the first time you talked to anybody about that?
Couple days ago.
A couple of days ago? Okay. That's the first time you mentioned that?
Sure.
Okay. And then that would have been after Shelley testified, right? Shelley Smith?
I guess. I don't really remember when Miss Smith testified.
Miss Smith. Did you bring that to somebody's attention, or did somebody ask you about it?
I couldn't. I'm not sure.
And I think you keep forgetting I'm on cross. You testified that. How many times had you been there with your dad? I wasn't quite clear with your answers to Mr. Griffin. I'm not trying to be difficult, Buster.
I understand, and I can't give you an approximate number, but I mean, I've been out there with him several times.
And would you always call? You said you called. Did you always call when you got there?
Yeah, I feel like most of the time you would call just to tell, because the ladies get nervous. If you hadn't called and they see a car pulling in the driveway, it's just easier to call and let them know, like, hey, we're going to be pulling around. Please unlock the door. We'd like to come in.
Had you ever been over there at 6:30 in the morning?
Have I ever been out there at 6:30 in the morning? Just like overall,
I guess.
Yeah, I've been out there at 6:30 in the morning before going hunting and whatnot.
And you called then also, right?
Well, that was
going into the house.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I would just let them know, especially 6:30 in the morning.
Sure.
Okay.
Now, in this last clip, Metters, he starts kind of working Buster a little bit, especially as it relates to the problems Alex was having as it relates to money and the stress that goes with all of that. And he even touches on the murder itself, and he asks Buster his perception on the aftermath of those murders. And Griffin even gets up and asks a one-question rebuttal. So here's all that in this clip.
Your mom loved Edisto, didn't she?
Yes, sir, she did.
I love Edisto. She was actually getting some work done down there, wasn't she?
Yes, sir. She was getting some work done on the house.
And on this date, June 7th, literally there were people inside doing work that day, weren't there?
I think so.
Yeah. And her plan was to stay down there that night, wasn't it?
I don't know. I don't know what her plan was.
You had, I think the last time you'd been to Moselle, you said was the spring, maybe a few months prior to this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you have to say yes for the court reporter, not for me.
Yes.
Just for,
Sorry.
and you talked to your mom that day on June 7th?
Yes, sir.
And I think you had talked to Paul the last time on the 5th, if I'm not mistaken. June 5th is what you told him on the interview.
Sure.
Okay. And Mr. Griffiths asked you about the financial troubles and that have come out here. You had no knowledge of your dad's financial difficulties at all, did you?
No, sir.
I mean, you really did.
No, sir. I really didn't.
And as far as you knew, financially, the family was sound.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You went to Wofford.
I did go to Wofford.
Go Terriers, for the record.
Thank you.
But everything, as far as you knew, financially was okay. And when did you learn it wasn't?
I guess on September whatever that day in September was.
So back in the birthday, I guess for your dad, Memorial Day down at Edisto.
Sure.
Defense exhibit, and I apologize, I don't know what number it was just played. I believe Mr. Chris Wilson is hugging your dad.
Yes, sir.
Okay. He's a family friend.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You didn't know then that your dad owed Chris Wilson or stole $192,000 from him, did you?
I did not.
And I'm not saying that to be mean, but you really didn't know that.
That's correct. Didn't know.
And the boating accident that Mr. Griffin asked you about, that was pressure on the family, wasn't it?
I don't know that pressure's the right word. I mean, it's definitely an uneasy feeling. You know, your brother is criminally charged, and then you, myself, and my father have civil charges. I mean, definitely unsettling.
I mean, it caused stress within the family, didn't it?
It was stressful. I wouldn't say within the family, because I mean, you know, we supported each other. And
sure. And I'm not questioning that, but I mean, your mom felt ostracized.
Yes, sir.
She even more so wanted to stay at Edisto?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you were a little frustrated with Paul yourself, weren't you?
In terms
as far as using your ID and getting all that. And that case is over, okay?
Sure.
But I mean, you didn't like it when you used your ID yourself. And I'm not trying to go anywhere, Buster, but he'd use your ID sometime and you didn't want him to.
How many questions you're going to ask? Questions, comments, what's the question? What's the question?
Did you like it?
Yes, sir.
Did he used your ID, didn't he?
Objection, bro.
Objection's overruled.
I'm sorry. Can you say it again?
Did Paul use your identification?
Yes.
Did that frustrate you?
Sometimes.
Okay. You were shown the tree video with the shirt and the pants. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
When you saw your dad on the night of June 7th, what did he have on?
When I had made my way up to the house, he was wearing shorts and a t-shirt.
Who laundried his clothes?
At that period of time, would have been Blanca, and then my mom also does laundry sometimes.
But on a day-to-day, did Blanca take care of your dad's clothes, laundering, cleaning, folding?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Griffin asked you about. I'm going to do that. You never went back to Moselle after this incident?
Well, I mean, after.
Or did you?
If you take June 7th on June, I mean, I've been back to Moselle since then, but I've never slept another night at Moselle.
Did your dad try to get you to go hunting out there again one time, or suggest it?
He asked if I wanted to, and if I wanted to, that I could.
Well, you didn't want to?
No, sir. Didn't want to go.
That's all I have. Thank you, Buster.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
What a masterful job by Metters there. Amazing, really. And that's all I've got for you today. Look, tomorrow, if you are a Patreon subscriber, a bonus episode just for you folks is dropping tomorrow, and it is fire. You're going to want to check it out. And many of you may remember the DC Madam scandal. It is on a particular senator that was involved in that scandal, and I got that full story for you, and that is just for Patreon subscribers. That's coming your way tomorrow, Friday. Thank you so much for listening, supporting. Check us out at patreon.com/exposed podcast files for more. And until next time, for Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite, I'm your host, Jim Chapman. Much love.